Hello, everyone. We welcome you to this edition of News You Can Use. I'm your host, Thera Martin, and we're just delighted to have you with us today on our program. In the first portion of the show, we are talking about Avenging the Ancestors Coalition and a national slave memorial that they fought to get at 6th and Market Street. Attorney Michael Coard, the founder of ATAC, Avenging the Ancestors Coalition, will join us to tell us as much of that story as he can during today's program. And when we turn the page a little bit later on in the show, we're going to shine the spotlight on a lady who has a testimony to give from corporate America to having a stroke and learning how to walk and talk again to now operating her own successful business. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Glad to be here, Thera Martin, with you on this edition of News You Can Use.
Very much for having me too.
Wow.
Good to
Said,
see you.
it is good to see you, but you didn't say that. You said you can use Rebooted. I'm Thera Martin, and I am glad to be back at LaSalle TV.
Hello, once again, everybody. We're so glad to have you on our show. Without further ado, let's jump right to it. Attorney Michael Coard, Esquire, he is here with us. He is the man behind Avenging the Ancestors Coalition, along with a wonderful team of people who stand by your side, Michael. Everything that has happened really over the last 12 months or so has been mind-boggling as it relates to 6th and Market Street and the slave memorial that you and others fought so hard to get there. And then on January 22nd of this year of 2026, Donald Trump decided he was going to have it dismantled. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening now?
Well, first of all, Thera, thank you very much for having me on your widely popular show. That's the first thing I want to say. Second thing is, I'm so glad, Thera, you started with January 22, because I want to start there, but I want to put it in context. And as you know, Thera, I got a 4-hour version. I got a 4-minute version. I'm going to give you the 4-minute version. And it begins nearly a quarter century ago, 24 years ago. In June of 2002, there was a newspaper article here in Philadelphia indicating that the Liberty Bell Center, which then was at 5th and Market, was going to move 1 block west to 6th and Market. And the reason is the area that surrounded the Liberty Bell Center was too cramped and too crowded and too congested. So they found bigger space at 6th and Market. That's the first thing, News Report 2002. The second thing is the new site of the Liberty Bell Center, 6th and Market. We found that's where America's first White House stood. It was known as the President's House, the Executive Mansion, the Robert Morris Mansion, but it served under something called the Federal Residence Act of 1790. It served as America's first White House because at the time when the Congress said, hey, we want to have a nation's capital, we want to put it in D.C., D.C. was swampland. So they needed to pave over and make it the way they needed to. In the meantime, they said, we'll make Philadelphia our temporary capital. That's why the President's House at 6th and Market is actually America's first White House. That was the second thing. The third thing, Thera, we found out again in 2002 is that they moved the Liberty Bell from 5th and Market to 6th and Market, 6th and Market being the site of America's first White House. Interesting to the African American community, but it wasn't until we found out the third thing that shocked us, that George Washington, the President of the United States, in Philadelphia at America's first White House, enslaved black men, black women, and black children. And when I found that out there, I was enraged because I was born and raised in Philly. Never heard about it. I went to arguably one of the greatest schools in America, Masterman. Never heard about it. Went to Cheney University, America's oldest HBCU. Never heard about it. Went to Ohio State University for law school, the largest university on the planet at the time. Never heard about it. So I got together with several other local community activists and we formed a group called ATAC, ATAC, Avenging the Ancestors Coalition. People always say, well, Mike, you always talk about the ancestors and how we have to fight for them and how we need to avenge them. Why don't we call the group ATAC? And I'm like, ATAC, A-T-T-A-C-K. That makes no sense. But when they explain A-T-A-C, that's perfect. So, Thera, here's how it goes. We fought for 8 solid years from 2002 up to 2010. And on December 15, 2010, there was the grand opening of the first, I repeat, the first slavery memorial of its kind on federal property in the history of the United States of America. Thera, everything was great until it wasn't. And it wasn't 15 years later when the guy in the White House was inaugurated, sworn in January 2025, issued dozens and dozens of executive orders. Every single one that pertained to black people was anti-black, anti-DEI, anti-affirmative action, anti-critical race theory. So we knew what was coming. Fast forward from January 2025 to March 2025, he issued another executive order where he said basically this, Thera, I've been looking around these federal historical sites, and they're too black. They're not white enough. The terminology he used, he said they, quote, inappropriately disparage, unquote, Americans past and living. And I'm thinking, how do you inappropriately disparage somebody when you tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? That's March of 2025. And finally, there, May of 2025, he gets his Interior Department Secretary, a guy named Doug Burgum, to specifically target 6th and Market, President's House, Slavery Memorial. And he gives it there a 120-day deadline. So if he issued it in May, as he did, he could have shut it down as early as September 17. But ATAC, in the meantime, had expanded, become more active, and we brought in more people, and we fought and fought and fought. September 17 comes and goes. October, November, December, nothing happens. And unlike a thief in the night, this was a thief in the daytime. 2:57 p.m., Thursday, January 22 of 2026. They come in and literally with gigantic crowbars rip the soul out of the site by removing 34 interpretive panels. The interpretive panels there are the essence of the site. It explains everything. So if you take out the explanation, nothing means anything. So that's when the fight was on, and the rest, as they say, is ongoing history.
My. And the fight has been on. There have been a number of actions, rallies out in front of 6th and Market Street. And each and every time people, they showed up in strong numbers. No, and as cold as it was ice, there was snow. In fact, the national parks ought to be ashamed of themselves for not clearing that snow. But I guess they did that to discourage us from being there. But people still showed up and showed out in a very positive way. And the judge, the federal judge that is a Republican, by the way, she ruled in favor of attacking the city of Philadelphia, who also put in a lawsuit against this action from the president.
I love it when I talk to a journalist who knows the story, because your questions tell me that you know the story. So you're right about the judge. Here's the background. As I said, the federal government vandalized the site on January 22nd. But I want to be clear there. It wasn't just a matter of vandalizing the site. To the extent that the site of 6th and Market was historic, hallowed ground, it was more than simply vandalism. It was desecration. They desecrate the site. So that's January 22. Fast forward to January 30, and following the lawsuit filed by the city and the amici brief by our group, on January 30, that would have been a Friday, there was an oral argument in federal court. And the judge was giving it to the government attorneys, like basically saying this: I'm not saying you government attorneys on behalf of Trump had that own the site. You might, we can decide later. I'm not saying that you didn't have the right to remove stuff. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But the judge basically said this: even if you owned it, and even if you had the right to remove stuff, why would you want to? You don't dispute the information there. You agree George Washington enslaved black people at that site. So if you agree that that's true, it's different if you're saying it's false, George Washington didn't, but you concede that he did. So why would you remove it? So that's January 30. The judge was so, and again, Republican judge appointed by a Republican president. She asked the government at that oral argument of January 30, what's the condition of the 34 panels? And she really didn't get a straight answer. So she ordered that she be able to come down that Monday, February 2nd, and see them. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the folks who's with the judge, but was sworn to secrecy about exactly where we were. Suffice it to say that the best way I can describe where those 34 panels there were, imagine taking the Liberty Bell and throwing it in Uncle Joe's garage. That's where those 34 items were. It was that outrageous. And then we go from that day, February 2nd, of seeing him, to winning on February 16, when the judge granted exactly what we in the city wanted. But
on President's Day,
while we're having our rally at the site,
yeah.
The next day, February 17, the federal government files its appeal. But here's the weird thing there. Lawyers always know that when you're filing an appeal, let's say from district court to Third Circuit, you not only file the appeal to the Third Circuit, but you ask for a stay. In other words, you ask that the lower court decision be held in abeyance, be suspended. They didn't do that. So when they filed on February 17, they only filed the appeal. The judge then, and here's the weird thing there, the next day, February 18, that's when the federal government had the power washing. They had all these heavy duty scrubbing and scraping, and we assumed that they were going to further destroy the site, but they didn't. And here's what happened. They then later filed for a stay on the last day. That would have been February 20. They had a deadline of February 20, Friday, 5 p.m. to put all 34 back. Around 4 o'clock p.m., Thera, the Third Circuit intervened, said timeout, and said that the federal government did not have to restore all 30 panels while the appeal took place. But there, we're still winning. This is how. We won on February 16 with the district court. Even though on February 20, an hour before the deadline, the Third Circuit put it on hold, here's what's interesting about our victory there. The federal government had already returned 16 of the 32. So the 16 are still there. In addition, the Third Circuit said, don't add any new or different information. That's important, Thera, because there's rumors that the plan was to remove those 34, telling the real truth, and putting replacements up, singing the praises of George Washington without mentioning slavery. So we won on the 16th. We got about half of the stuff still back up, and they can't add new stuff. We're still winning, Thera.
I know that you are. I know that you are. And the other thing that at the beginning of this new process with when they dismantled and everything down the 6th and Market, and you and the ATAC said, okay, we're setting 30 days. We're going to get this thing done. And I think there were probably some in the crowd who said 30 days, that might not be attainable. But darn if you didn't attain it.
Thera, I'm so glad that you're asking these great questions. We have, and I know that it might sound like hyperbole, we have one of the greatest public relations professionals in the history of Philadelphia, arguably in Pennsylvania. When I talk about public relations, I'm talking about Dawn Chavu of Chavu Consulting. We worked with her, and she came up with, we had a big town hall meeting there on January 27th. And before that meeting, we sat down with Dawn, and she talked about this 30-day campaign. And I'm always optimistic. But when I heard it, I'm like, I don't know, Dawn, 30 days, because it's a three-pronged approach. 1, to restore the site, 2, to enhance the site, and 3, replicate it around the country. So we talked about restoring it in 30 days. So that takes us from January 27 to February 26. But even before that, 10 days before the February 26, 30-day deadline, 10 days earlier than that, in February 16, we won. We won within 30 days, and we're still winning. We're going to ratchet things up and escalate stuff, but that 30-day campaign, despite the naysayers, was attainable, and we did win. And again, we're still winning. We got half of them still up, and we got an order from the court not to add that nonsense about the mythological BS concerning George Washington.
Our time is all but out, but please give us a way that folks who are viewing this program on LaSalle TV can be in touch with ATAC and sign up, support ATAC, and even sign the petition that's still out there.
Thank you, Thera. I'll make this quick. Email us and call us. Email us, atac.avengingtheancestors@gmail.com. atac.avengingtheancestors@gmail.com, or call us 215-552-8751. That's 215-552-8751.
Michael Coard, I owe you. Thank you so much for making yourself available to me and to LaSalle TV. We appreciate you. Keep up the struggle. Keep up the struggle.
Thank you, Thera. Have a wonderful day.
And you too. Bye-bye. And that's it. That wraps us up for this edition of News You Can Use. We appreciate everybody for checking out the program. Please come out and support ATAC when you hear about the programs and the things that they are doing. Also, I would encourage you to make for sure that you register to vote. If you're not a registered voter, make sure you handle that business, because our next election is coming up. Our primary is on Tuesday, May the 19th. All righty, that's it for us. We're out, and we'll go to commercial break.
Dan, you need to go.
Really?
It's important.
I feel fine.
Look, you cannot mess around with this kind of stuff. Some cancers, man, we just don't want to lose you from something we could have caught.
What I need to do?
You just give your doctor a call. They'll tell you what screening test you need.
Fine. Can I have my pie now? Oh, man.
Save the Children believes childhood without food is unimaginable. Yet around the world, children are suffering from the worst famine in our lifetime, coupled with conflict, poverty, climate change, and more. Join Save the Children and get fed up. Fed up with the lack of progress. Fed up with the injustice. Learn how you can get involved in the fight against childhood hunger at savethechildren.org/getfedup.
I'm fed up.
We're fed up.
We're fed up.
And we're back now as we continue with this edition of News You Can Use. And at this time, we are so glad to bring to the spotlight Danielle McLane, the CEO and founder of a business called Diamond Beauty Cosmetics. She's got a story and a testimony to share. And I'm just so glad that I met this lady out in the community one day and got her business card, then lost her business card, found the business card, and said, oh, we're going to get her on the show. Thank you for being with us, Danielle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, yes, yes. Tell us a little bit about the business first, and then we're going to go to the backstory and how you got from point A in corporate America to where you are today.
Sure. So Diamond Beauty Cosmetics is a full cosmetic line with vegan, gluten-free ingredients. We focus on clean beauty. And then there's Diamond Beauty Academy, where we teach children in underserved and marginalized communities the fundamentals of makeup, life skills, financial literacy, and also cosmetic chemistry. So we have a lab in our building at 631 where the students actually develop and create the products using raw, vegan, and gluten-free ingredients.
Oh, so they're learning. They're little scientists.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that's a beautiful thing. How did you get the concept to do this particular kind of business?
So I've been in beauty, I feel like all my life. I grew up with both my parents, and my dad always called me a princess. So I always went through life, thinking that I was a princess. Fast forward to college, they gave me the name Diamond because I used to always have sparkles. So that's how I came up with the name Diamond Beauty. How I got to the cosmetic line as well as the academy was I graduated in 2004, worked for the Department of Defense for quite some time, and ended my career as a chief financial officer, which is a CFO. I had a stroke at the age of 34, coming from an investment meeting on 76. So it pretty much changed the trajectory of my life. I went from being executive director to Homeland Security to a cost analyst to an assistant controller to a controller to a CFO. And being a Black woman in this position, and you're used to managing, you're used to controlling, and you're being at the peak of your career, and then you have a stroke. So
at 32,
at 34,
at 34, who would think,
Stress. So one thing my dad always told me, and my mom as well, told me that, in corporate America, you're a number. Just know that you're a number. So they don't care if you are good, sick, as long as you're getting the work done, you're a number. And I didn't believe that. I felt like I was a value. I felt like I was an asset. And I didn't feel like I was just a number until I became a number. So, yeah. So, fast forward to, after I had my stroke, I had to go through therapy and everything. And one of the things that I asked my doctor, who was a young African-American lady, I said, what would you do? I said, you work hard to be a doctor, correct? She was like, yeah. I said, so what would you do if all of a sudden one day you can no longer be a doctor? Because that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And she said, Danny, I would do something that I love. She said, and the one thing that I know that you love is beauty, fashion, and makeup. And right then and there is when it ticked in my head,
Ding,
wow,
ding.
yes. So I remember waking up one day, and I had these dreams in the middle of the night. And I remember waking up one day and going to Target the next morning and putting all these highlighters and blushes into a blender. My mom used to be a cake baker. They used to call it a cake lady. So I put these blushes and highlighters into the blender, and I created 4 colors. In which I named them. I then went on to Eventbrite and reached out to different people in the makeup industry and was like, hey, my name is Diamond Beauty. Can I put these diamonds in my highlighters in your swag bags? And a lady from New York named Vanessa Coops, and I say her name because I literally just said to her yesterday, I speak your name in rooms that you're not even in because you were the first person to believe in me. She said, I want you to come to New York. And I came to New York. Bella Magazine interviewed me. That was my first time being on, that was my first time, being interviewed, sitting in front of people after I had my stroke. So they interviewed me. I didn't make any money, but I met a guy named James Vincent who helped with the Rihanna Fenty line. James Vincent is part of the makeup show. He works with Danessa Myricks, they're very, very high up in, the fashion industry. And they were my mentors. They were my mentors. So I had my product launched at 420 West Broadway in New York and Soho for quite some time, which is how I got introduced to New York Fashion Week, Miami Swim Week, Vogue. And then I opened up a store here in Philadelphia on South Street. So I was there for about 5 years and I didn't feel significant. So I got accepted into this program called the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small
I'm
Business.
familiar.
Yes. So one of the things that Goldman Sachs wanted us to do was build our growth opportunity within our business. And my growth opportunity was to build a university. So I built a growth opportunity to build a university that could serve and could help children in underserved and marginalized communities learn the fundamentals of not just makeup, life skills, financial literacy, and cosmetic science, but also teach them how to show up. Because one thing that I learned is that it's one thing to teach these kids how to do makeup or how to create makeup or product development or anything, but we have to show them how to show up. We got to give them life skills. And I felt like that was where the gap was. The gap between these kids learning hair, makeup, and the fashion industry, and then actually knowing how to show up. It was a huge gap. So I created a program, and it has scaled since to 20, I think 2024 was when I got my 501.
What a blessing. What a blessing. So
Yeah.
you really have had quite an experience in the professional world, as you said, from corporate America to the pressures and everything that corporate America can put on you, having a stroke,
Yes.
learning how to talk and walk again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they said the brain is the hardest thing.
Hmm.
One thing that the doctor told my parents was, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. The brain is the hardest thing to prepare. Her cognitive level will never be the same. She will not be able to understand. And
But
so,
look at you now. Look
yeah,
at you
look at
now.
me. And it's a testimony. And one of the things
Mm.
I was telling someone earlier is that I didn't believe them.
Mhm.
I didn't believe them. So even though they told me I had a stroke, even though they told me that it was a possibility I wasn't gonna be able to walk or talk again, I felt like I was so strong that I didn't believe them, but I also believe that that's what helped me. That's
Yeah.
what helped me shape to who I am, is that
Mhm.
the power of manifesting and believing that I was not who they thought I was going to be.
Yes, yes, that is so amazing. What an amazing story. So, for people who are watching our program right now who want to know more about Danielle McLane and want to know about your cosmetics and how they can get their hands on some, or they want to come and have their young ladies be a part of your nonprofit program, how can they connect?
So my Instagram is Diamond Beauty Cosmetic _ boutique. Our website is www.diamondbeautyacademy.info. And everything is on the website and the Instagram. If children want to sign up for our next cohort, which will begin in April, the cosmetic line is everything is just there.
Okay. So one of the questions I have for you before we run out of time, I've
Sure.
got 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Can people set up appointments and pay to have a face made up for prom or wedding or other
Yeah.
special event?
Yeah. So I have a team. Based in Philly. I have a New York team and I have a Jersey team. So
Hmm.
these girls are all licensed cosmetologists. They all been doing, they all been in the industry as far as fashion, runway. So they all have experience, and they do, private
Wow.
services.
Okay.
And
Okay.
also our students. So one of our students get to work New York Fashion Week as well as Atlantic
Hmm.
City Fashion Week. And one of them just came back from Atlantic City Fashion Week. She's only 16.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah,
How exciting is that?
it's super. It's definitely rewarding. It's definitely
Hmm.
rewarding.
Okay. So, what advice would you give to an up and coming woman who might be watching this program right now? This show is going to be on, I believe, during maybe the tail end of March, Women's History Month, and into the month of April, and people will be seeing the show. And for women in particular, let's speak to the women who have been dreaming about going into business. They want to go in business, but they're still sitting on the seat of indecision.
Yeah, indecisiveness.
Mhm.
Start, start. It doesn't. You're not always going to win the first time, but you will win. But you also have to believe. One of the people that I watched as I was going through my journey was a guy named Bob Proctor. And he was really big on manifestation. And one thing that he told me to do was write down everything that I wanted to be. And before that, like is, you know, I want a store on South Street, I want a university, put I am in front of it. So write down, you know, what it is that you want to be, because if you write it down and you believe it, you can attain it.
I love it. I love it. That is some great advice to share for sure. And how important is the education component to success in business? And how important is a business plan?
So education is definitely important. One of the things that I teach my kids, because they do a pitch at the graduation, is that you have to know your brand. So you have to be educated in your brand. You have to know what your mission. You got to be able to identify what your mission is and your vision, as well as you want to know what your ingredients and the things that you're selling. So a business plan to me is also important, because when you go to banks, they want to know what it is that your mission is. They want to know who your target audience is. They want to make sure that you have sat down and you have dotted your I's and crossed your T's before you came to them to get some money.
Well, you mentioned about Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs, yes.
They don't fool with anybody who doesn't have their stuff together.
They sure
I
don't.
am
The
impressed
biggest
with you.
financial
It's hard to
institution in
get
the
under
world.
them.
Yes, they are the largest financial institution in the world.
And you
Yes.
won an opportunity to be mentored and to have that
Yes, it
backup.
was amazing. It was amazing. It was like, I always say, like, Goldman Sachs changed my life. Goldman Sachs definitely changed my life. So
Okay. Now, so you gave us your website address. People can always go there and learn more. But your location, is it in West Philadelphia? It's in Upper Darby. For some reason, I have Upper
North
Darby.
Philly. I'm in North Philly.
Oh, better yet.
Yeah, so I'm near Spring Garden, 631 North 12th Street.
Okay.
So right there near 12th and Wildest, near there.
Okay, we will keep that in mind.
Yes.
Also, final thoughts that you would like to leave with our viewing audience on this day.
Stay aligned. Stay driven, stay motivated. And I'm here, you know, I always tell my students, I am a phone call away for advice, for mentors. But if you have a plan, just visualize it, write it down, and it can be yours.
Okay, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you for being
Thank
my guest. I'm
you.
so glad that we had the opportunity to bump into each other and meet that day a few months
Yes,
back.
me
And
too.
and this was
too.
meant to be. So I will
Yes.
stay in touch. I'm going to hold on to this card now
Oh,
and
thank
look
you
forward
so
to talking
much.
to you again in the future.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much
And I
for
appreciate
having
you
me.
back. Thank
All
you for
right.
giving all the gifts that you're giving. You're pouring into
Yes.
other young ladies and other people to help lift them up. And that's what we're all supposed to do. As we close out on this edition of News You Can Use, I want to thank Professor Tanya Ellis again for giving me the opportunity to continue to do this program, News You Can Use, here at LaSalle TV. Folks, you can check out this program on Comcast Channel 56 and on Verizon Channel 36. And there's other great programs too. It's not just about Thera. This LaSalle TV channel is about our young people who are going into broadcasting and who will be great broadcasters and communicators as they continue with their education at LaSalle and after they graduate too. And so I'm cheering on all the students at LaSalle TV who use this studio as their foundation to grow their area of communications for sure. Thank you again for joining us, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.